very happy to say that we are joined right now by the Attorney General of the great state of Virginia, a man who is seeking the governorship, and that is Ken Cuccinelli. And Mr. Attorney General, welcome to the show, sir.
Good to be with you, Steve.
Well, it's great to have you. A new poll out today, and I think it's got to be encouraging because it shows a dead heat with registered voters, but you jump ahead with likely voters, and among those who are certain to vote in November, the lead grows to a 10-point lead, 51-41. It's an NBC Marist poll. What's your take on the numbers today?
Well, that's consistent with the Washington Post poll that came out over the weekend with a 10% lead among likely voters. And obviously we're happy to be ahead. I'd rather be ahead 6 months from now. So we've got a long way to go from here to there. And to that end, yesterday we rolled out our first policy proposal, which is a jobs program that includes cutting taxes for businesses and middle-class families, and so that they can spur job creation, which is the focus of the plan, and we're going to pay for that by reducing the growth of the state budget substantially, and also by closing many of the exemptions and loopholes that special interests have managed to carve out over the years.
Yes, that's all important, and it carves out a big difference between you and your opponent. But also, what you have not been afraid to take on is the life issue and the abortion issue from a common sense perspective. See, I felt all along that John McCain and Mitt Romney blew a big opportunity to point out the differences between themselves and Barack Obama, the Republican Party, and the Democratic platform, and on the issue of life. Instead, they accepted the label of anti-woman, war against women, and just ran away and said, okay, you win that issue. But when it comes to common sense things such as the keeping abortion clinics and other medical facilities that treat women and everyone else clean, simple common sense things that your opponent is against and you are for, when it comes to holding abortion doctors accountable for just the basics, you've not shied away, and I think that that's a winning strategy, because who could disagree with that?
Well, I certainly think that a track record of highlighting the protection of women in those circumstances is a major difference between us, and it's a positive for me. I would say that just if you looked at the poll you'd mentioned, you would find that on those sorts of issues, it's a pretty small number of folks that are prioritizing that right now, because everybody's been in a 5-year struggle economically, and so that those issues like economics do tend to rise to the top. But I don't back off on what I believe, whether it's property rights or whether it's human dignity and preservation of the vulnerable in our society at every stage. And I've had a role to play in that as Attorney General.
No, absolutely. And you also had a role to play as Attorney General in the opposition to Obamacare. And, of course, poll after poll nationally shows that people would love to have the whole thing repealed. And now we hear from Democrats, Max Baucus, Harry Reid, that it could be a train wreck. And then people like you and me, I think, believe it's already a train wreck. We see company after company saying that, they're going to not offer benefits, change benefits, do away with benefits, or lower their amount of employees if they're a small business, not to go over that threshold where they'd be required to have to provide the health care. So, again, I think this, when people are educated about this is another winning issue.
Yeah, we talk a lot when complex legislation is passed about unintended consequences. Well, they may not have intended these consequences, but they were foreseen consequences, and they didn't care. They pressed ahead anyway. And you are right, I was the first to get to court to sue over the constitutionality of it. And while it wasn't our case, of the 4 constitutional arguments, the states, the limited government side, won 3 of them. The only reason the federal health care bill still stands is because the Chief Justice, in a ruling that nobody really argued for, upheld it as a tax, which was very unfortunate. And so now in 2013, we're going to see the unfolding bureaucratic carnage that this legislation is going to cause, when even the bill's sponsor, Max Baucus, a Democrat senator from Montana, is basically bawling out the Secretary of Health and Human Services for what a train wreck his bill is. His bill, it's pretty bad. you know it's pretty bad. And that also is a pretty stark difference between me and Terry McAuliffe. He wants to do this Medicaid expansion that would eventually bloom up in the state budget, even if the federal government keeps to its commitments. And I'm not real confident that they will even do that.
We have a couple of minutes left, so we're talking to Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, of course, running for governor of the state of Virginia. What's going to happen between, I mean, you can't predict, but I mean, what do you see nationally affecting the race in the state of Virginia between now and November? Do you see Benghazi? Do you see Obamacare? Do you see, anything else on the national scene that will become an issue, a bigger issue going forward?
Well, we already touched on health care. That is going to be a major issue as it unfolds. The other thing that happens in Virginia gubernatorial races, because we're 1 year after the presidential, is that what goes on in Washington and people's attitudes about it affects the electorate in Virginia, especially, of course, Northern Virginia, where I live and where I grew up. And that is unpredictable. What I can predict is that regardless of the flavors that takes, and we'll see what it becomes, that people are still going to be prioritizing what I'm prioritizing, and that is job creation and how to appropriately make that happen. You know, I'm running against a crony capitalist character in Terry McAuliffe who wants to tell everybody, hey, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to be your partner, we're going to do this with taxpayer money. He has a very different vision for the role of government. My vision is we're going to get out of your way. We're going to lower your costs. We're going to lower your burdens. We're going to make it more attractive to grow jobs and to start businesses here. That's my vision for Virginia, and that's a stark contrast with a guy who has basically made his own money through his buddies and wants to govern that way.
Why does that resonate? One more. I just want to get one more in here, if you'll allow me. Why does that resonate state by state? Because state by state, the Republican Party is doing fine, but on a national level, you hear calls for, oh, we have to become more like the Democrats, whether it's the social issues or even some other issues. You know, we have to. This group doesn't like us. That group doesn't like us. We have to make people like us. And instead of talking like you are and talking like governors around the country do and get elected as Republicans with conservative values and strong economic values and family values, the National Party wants to move left.
Well, it isn't that we don't have those debates out in the states. We have them in Virginia for sure. It's that some of them are turning out differently within a lot of our states than they're turning out at the national level. And you know, after we lost in 2012, Virginia's a swing state. A lot of people were very depressed. And, oh, Ken, what do we do now? And my answer was, we show the way. We show the way. We lead by example. And when the American people come around to the notion that, gee, you know, this bigger and bigger government really isn't working, then they're going to look around and say, well, what does work? And we need to have ready-made, Republican-led, pro-growth, smaller government examples to hold up and say, this is how you do this. This is the best way for America. I tell people in Virginia that the greatest resource we have in Virginia is Virginians.
There you go.
And the best thing government can do is get out of their way.
All right. Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, good luck. I hope you'll come back, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be with you.
Thank you very much. All right, Ken Cuccinelli, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming back. Don't go away. Steve Malzberg Show.
The Steve Malzberg Show.